Greetings my fellow citizens, glad to see you guys once again. My name is Cadet Del Valle, and today I'm making a tutorial about how to use VSeeFace. Now keep in mind that my channel is not intending to be a VTuber tutorial based channel. This is a one-time thing because I want to give a big thanks to Emiliana for creating the program, and I also want to help VTubers who want to use the program but they might have a hard time with using it. So I will show you guys how it works. So VSeeFace is a webcam based tracking program which uses webcam to make your character move. It also uses Leap Motion, which is a separate device that costs around $80 to $90 or $100 depending on where you live. It's a small device that captures hand movements, which your character can use to have hand motion, which is very good for having interaction with your audience. Now, right here, what you're seeing on my screen is the tutorial for VSeeFace. I recommend please checking out the pictures here because they're very useful when trying to record your avatar with video games or backgrounds and all that cool stuff. But if you are returning from a factory reset, I would recommend clicking the skip button. But if you're brand new, please don't skip this. Please check these pictures, and if you have to, if you want to review these pictures again in case you forget, there is a help section in VSeeFace which tells you everything about how to use VSeeFace, which I will go over quickly. What we have here is showing you how you use VSeeFace in OBS. OBS is a program which is used for recording, videos. So VTubers tend to use this program a lot because it's free and it's very easy to use because there's a lot of tutorials on YouTube that shows you how to use the program and all that cool stuff. Right here is showing you that you must use game capture since it does use less CPU, which is very convenient. It uses game capture and you're going to set to these following settings so that way you can be able to use VSeeFace, and also make sure that every time you open up OBS Studio you can always have the VSeeFace settings ready so you're ready to start recording again. Now right here you have the transparency because VSeeFace uses transparency on their program. The reason why they use transparency is because there's a couple of models that might have the color green on them, and you don't want the green screen to mess up your colors. So Emiliana uses transparency on the program, so that way you guys can be able to have a very good looking avatar without any weird rendering issues. So here's the following settings for that. And you also don't want your mouse to be over your model either. So, we want to make sure we all look very presentable. Now right here, there is a little button which will be used to enable transparency. It is very small, so do keep in mind to always remember that this button exists because sometimes there's some VTubers that might forget about this button. Now there are some VTubers that might crop out this button, but I usually would not crop my model out. It usually depends on your setup. But this button is here, it's small, and you can click on it so that way you can enable transparency. If you want to get rid of the button, especially when you're recording, you would press the space bar in order to get rid of it. And you can toggle it again, which I will show you after this tutorial. This little mini tutorial she has, and I'll show you how it would look like. Now the reset. Now there's a couple of times where you might be doing tracking and you might notice that your model is in a weird position. There is a button called reset position which basically helps reset your position so that way it's in the correct, it's basically mapped properly to your head. So instead of having this weird head movement, that weird head tilt, you can straighten yourself out so that way you are good to go and you're not bugging out. The reset. Now right here, let's say you're streaming and you need to reset your avatar. Your avatar is having a weird position and you're streaming and you're playing a game and you notice that your avatar is, in a weird position. You can set a hotkey. I set mine to Control-Shift-P, but you can set to anything else if you like. But I use Control-Shift-P for position, which you can use to reset your avatar model, during your recording. Very useful for streaming and recording in general. Now the camera. A lot of people were wondering about how do you move your model? Well, you actually move your model by the camera. This is with using the mouse, and I will of course go over this. So of course, you would use the Alt key. You'll hold your Alt key and you're going to be using your left click, your middle mouse, and your right click for panning and rotate. There's also an alternative button with control, which can be very useful. Do keep in mind that if you don't have an external mouse, the one you hear, this might be a little tricky, but really the control option should also help you out, in case your Alt key doesn't work or anything. We use Alt and all of the mouse keys, mouse buttons in order to move our camera. So, and here's a tutorial. She shows that this is the help section, which has all of the information which will help you when using VSeeFace. And you can access the tutorial right here in this button in case you have to look back at what are the OBS settings and all that kind of stuff. And that's the end of the tutorial. And there we see Emiliana's little model. Now, the model format. It uses a VRM model, and it does not accept FBX, OBJ, or date files. So do keep in mind, if you are wondering how to get a VRM model, you can use the following VRM character creation program, like Void, Cecil Henshin, Hitogada, and Vikatsu. There are other programs that do character creation, but those are the main programs used for VRM model creation. Although be aware that Hitogada doesn't export VRM since they have their own webcam tracking program. They use PMX, but you can still convert the PMX into VRM using the UniVRM plugin, which I will send a link to. You can also use it to also make an FBX model into UniVRM. Well, for PMX models, you do have to use more plugins, which I will send a video about how to convert PMX to UniVRM. Now, let's click on avatar. And I will add my avatar. And you see here, there's my avatar, and you click on it, and there you go. You have all of the information here. Now, do keep in mind, if this is from the character creation program, like if you're using Void, you don't have to worry about the licensing because you basically practically own the model. But if you're using something like Vikatsu, you might want to check the character licensing, the document that they have on their website, because I think they had some restrictions on their models, so I would recommend checking them out. I'm not sure, but I would recommend checking out the licensing on all these programs and their models. Very important. If you made the model yourself, you don't have to worry about it, and in my case, I made the model myself using Blender. I'm able to do whatever the heck I want with the model. Let's see, so let's start off with your camera. So this is what you're going to be using for your webcam. In my case, I will be using the HD camera. Now, if you have these extra cameras here, you don't have to worry about them. Just focus on what is your actual webcam, which my case will be HD camera. If by any chance, there are some cases where you might run into some issues with VSeeFace where you have to use something called the run bat file. It's on the website, so right here highlighted in blue, that's the website for VSeeFace, and it'll tell you about how to use run bat, which is very useful when you're trying to troubleshoot some things. So basically, in the website it'll explain about how to use it. I'm not going to really go over it too much, but it's very useful in case you have some issues with VSeeFace on tracking. So let's go on with choosing HD webcam. Just in the recent version of VSeeFace, there is something called recommended settings. So you click on here and it'll say proceed. Now, it's going to take a while for me, but I've already know what specs I should use. But you can click OK to find out what type of settings are best recommended for your computer. And it'll tell you, on these certain tracking quality, it'll tell you what FPS it'll give you. I would recommend taking a look. If you have to, take a screenshot of it so you can remember. But in my case, I already know what to use. Now, for the camera defaults, the camera settings, you can use camera defaults, but I'll put it to this settings, but you can also put it to default. I'll set my FPS to 30, and I'll leave mine to high quality. If by any chance you have a potato computer, you might want to reduce the quality. There is also toaster mode, which, yes, if you have a really old computer, toaster mode will be best. The problem is that you won't be able to have the cool tracking capabilities, but you can still be able to be a VTuber thanks to this little setting right here. But in my case, I'm able to use high quality. Now we can set up a microphone, which I will be using my snowball microphone to be able to capture my lip sync, which I'm actually doing on my character right now. I'm using my snowball microphone to capture my mouth movements. And if by any chance you speak in a different language, there's this little drop down menu right here, which will show you about the different languages. If you do want to translate and help Emiliana out on the translation, you can always check out Deat's Discord server. You can also remove avatar from the list in case you chose the wrong avatar, so do keep in mind about that. And also, you can check out all these other stuff here. But with that, let's click begin. And you should stay still, and it should be able to capture your movements. So as you can see, it's capturing my movements, and yes, you can see double me's. Whoa. So yeah, now you have these basic stuff, but you want to know, like, what more can we do in what more can we do with VSeeFace other than just sit around and be like, hey guys, I'm a VTuber. Well, as I said, I will talk about the camera stuff. So let's start off with talking about how are we going to move our model, because this looks pretty far. We might want to have it closer. So with the mouse, we're going to use the Alt key, and we're going to use the right click, and we're going to hold the right click button, and we're going to click and drag so we can zoom in and out. Zoom in and out. Yes, and you can have a really good zoom in. You can also rotate by doing this. With the left mouse button, you can, rotate yourself. Very useful. And if you want, you can also zoom in with the middle mouse and also pan your screen too. Very useful. Very useful indeed. So, let's just set it up a little closer and move it so that way we can have a nice little setup. Alright, so let's go on to these little settings right here, on the right side of me. Now, I personally like to set my animation to mirror, so that way when I look left, the character would look at its right, but if I'm looking to my right, the character will look at its left. I kind of like this. It's, for me it's convenient, but some people might like it differently where it's opposite. It really depends on what you're looking for. There is also track leap motion, which is enabled by default. Now, I don't own a leap motion quite yet. I do plan to probably get one pretty soon, but you can disable that. But if you do have a leap motion, you would turn it on. Make sure that your leap motion is connected and that you have the SDK V4, and you can be able to start tracking your, your hand movements. And I will go over the leap motion settings pretty quickly. I'm not sure about the settings, but I will show you, how it looks like and stuff. Now, right here, we have our smoothness settings and movement range. Now, if you're the type of person that really likes to have a lot of movement, I might as well put this all the way up. And you can have full range of movement, which I really like. But if you are doing streaming and you want your character in place, you can reduce the movement range and you can move around like this. Also, you can have a little bit of movement. You don't want to be too stiff, but you can use the little movement range for that kind of stuff. I usually prefer to have it big range, but for the sake of the video, I will just leave it mid-range. For smoothness, it's basically, how smooth do you want your movements to be. So I can put this really high, and it can make me move real slow, which I would not recommend you have. I would also not recommend putting it so low because you will start to twitch a lot, which is not what we want. I mean, faster movement, but you twitch a lot. So I would recommend leaving it mid-range. It really depends on what you're looking for. For tracking, I'm not really recommending any best tracking settings, but this is literally just explaining what they do and stuff. And as I said before, the reset position. So if the character's right here, click it and it'll reset it. And be aware to kind of straighten yourself out. So Right now I'm, facing straight towards my camera, and here's my character doing this. Reset position, and there you go. You also have hints right here, which is very useful when you're trying to get more information about tracking and, facial detection, all that. So I would take a chance at reading this because it'll be very useful when trying to figure out more about VSeeFace. Then you have the help section right here, which shows you all of the information, which, about hotkey types, R for reset avatar, screenshots, loading VRM model, reset camera, reset light direction, your green screen transparency thing, your expressions, which is very useful. I would recommend checking this out because this is, it shows you how do you get eyebrow tracking and all that stuff, and also expression detection. And you got your camera lights and all the settings that are very useful when using VSeeFace. So I would recommend taking a read at this stuff. But I will go over most of this stuff just for you guys. Right here, we're gonna click on settings, and you got all of these settings right here. So as I said, if you have a leap motion, you can click on leap motion settings, and right here, once you have your leap motion activated, you can mess around with all these settings, for like hand movements and, your rotations, your scaling, and all that cool stuff. I'm not going to go too in depth on it, but for the sake of this, I do not own one, so we'll skip that, but just know that there are settings for you to play around with if you want to basically have good leap motion hand tracking. Now you have your effects settings right here, which is very useful if you want to have, some fun effects. And here I am red. You can change it white, and yes, you can set up to look something like this and all that stuff, and you can play around with your colors, have a warm temperature and all that stuff. Basically play around with this, and even have ambient occlusion if you want to have some more shadows. And there's always some warning signs on the effects that'll let you know about, what would happen if you encounter this issue and all that cool stuff. But for now, I will disable the effects, but you can play around with it. There's also a new little effect called halftone, which gives you like a comic look, a manga look thing, so you can mess around with it and you can look like as if you were in a manga. So yes, or comic book, either. So yeah, let's start with your light settings. Light settings, you can use it to kind of darken or brighten up your shadows if you like, or you can change colors of your, your character if you like, all that cool stuff. And even ambient, which is also useful. If you are using standard shader on VRM models, you can be able to use it to help you with getting a very nice standard shader look. But most people would recommend Mtune, since it's it's very nice looking and it's very easy to use, and it's compatible with most VRM programs. So I would recommend using Mtune. Expression settings. I have a ton of expressions. You probably may not have a lot of expressions like this, but here you can be able to set up what expressions you want with your model, and hotkey base. So by default, VSeeFace sets your, the main VRM shape keys as Control Shift F1 or 2. I usually use my numpad, but sometimes depending on the game, I might use Control Shift. So for example, Control Shift F2, Control Shift F3, Control Shift F4, and all that cool stuff. And yes, you would notice that there are some blinking issues with your model. Yes, it's gonna happen. I will show you how to fix it. Let's say that was the case. Joy, your eyes are closed, but it can clip. I would recommend putting it, basically disabling eye blinking. That way, every time I blink, you never have to see that issue ever again. See? And if you want, if your mouth is wide open, because usually with Void models, their mouth is wide open for Joy, I would recommend disabling mouse movement. That way you can be able to, have your mouth wide open. You don't have to glitch your mouth all over the place. And if you want, you can disable eyebrow movement in case, if the eyebrows are clipping for some reason, you can be able to disable that. It's your choice. You can also set it to toggle or hold. With that being said, you can mess around with it, set hotkeys and all that. Like I can set a hotkey for this expression here, so click on none. I'll use numpad 9, click OK, and I can be able to enable my extra expressions. Hey, what's up? So yeah, we're gonna get into general settings, which is the big stuff in VSeeFace. The big stuff. Right here, you can play around with all of these things. So you can have auto blink in case you have if you have tracking issues, or if you prefer to record and have your glasses on, I would recommend leaving it to auto blink. Now I also have glasses myself, but I usually do tracking because I always take off my glasses. But if you want to keep your glasses on, you can always set it to auto blink. You can also set the sensitivity. You can have linked blink, which is very recommended because if you disable this, it will track individual eyes. So you can have a wink in VSeeFace, but it can look pretty derpy. Like I can be like halfway and that could look pretty weird. So yeah, I would recommend leaving it to link eye blinks. And you can also set up the audio lip sync. If you want to disable it by any chance, you can go ahead and set a hotkey. And you can also, if by any chance your lip sync isn't working, I would always leave this option on. Always use full lip sync animation, since that will help you out with your lip sync. Also hybrid mouse lip sync. I always use this. So whenever I talk, it's using the microphone. But if I'm not talking, I would change it to mouse tracking. So I can stop talking and I can open my mouse like this. See? So it's very useful. It's very useful to have that type of option enabled. You can also mirror image if you like with transparency. I don't really like this option, but there are some cases where some people would use this option, so it really depends on the person. I personally don't use it, but some people probably would want that. And camera position, default position. Right here, if you by any chance don't like having this be your default and you want this to be your default, this option will let you set up basically your default camera. I would set mine to custom. I would position my camera and then I would click the save button, and if I press the C button, as you can see, it does not reset. So that way, every time VSeeFace resets, it will keep this position of the camera, which is very useful. Now, if you ever want to disable your facial tracking, so let's say you have to be AFK for a moment, you would disable this button here, this little option. This will save CPU and it'll disable your facial tracking and just, have you talk. So let's get started with the expressions right here. Now, facial detection is it's very good to have, and it's actually one of the best parts of VSeeFace. So basically, it allows you to use your webcam to change your facial expressions, which is really awesome to have. So let's start off with the simple expression. So we click on simple, and if we smile, it becomes a fun expression. If our eyebrows are down, it becomes anger. And if it's up, it'll be surprise. It's pretty well done, although it may not be accurate depending on your lighting and all that stuff, but it's pretty good to have if you're in a rush or you want to test out how the expression detection would work. But if you really want accurate stuff, that's when the experimental expression detection comes in. So you're going to be using this option to actually have much more accurate data because it records your face, and that is way accurate. That's amazing. So yeah, now there is a tutorial about it, which you can see this little blue button here which says tutorial. This tutorial was created by Emiliana, which talks more in depth about how this setting here works. and it's very useful, and I recommend that you check it out, but I'm going to give you a quick crash course on how it works. So to get started, we're going to click on the button that says Show Tracking Points, and you can see a little green face right here. Now behind my character, there's a neutral button, and what you're going to do is you're going to keep your face similar to like this little neutral face right here. You know, normal face. And you're going to click on the button, and you're going to move around. Talk. You're going to talk around, blink, and all that. Do not change your expression during the recording, and also don't move too fast because it might mess with the tracking data, because it might cause some inaccuracy, but really move slow or at a moderate pace and it should work perfectly fine. And after a couple seconds to probably almost a minute, I guess, depending, you will stop recording neutral. Now, I would recommend try and make the facials match the character as best as possible, but it's really up to you on what you want. But for my case, I'm going to have my eyebrows up and a smile on my face. So I'm going to click on Fun, and I'm going to move around, and I'm going to talk, blink, all that cool stuff, and give it a couple seconds. And when I'm done, click on Stop Recording Fun. And then for anger, eyebrows down, a little frown, and don't make the cadet angry because you don't want to see me when I'm angry. Click on angry, record it, talk, blink, move around, all that stuff, tilt your head, all that cool stuff. Boom chakalaka boom. And we're gonna click on stop recording once you have enough data. Usually I record my data up to a minute, but it's all up to you. Usually 30 seconds are pretty good. Stop recording. And you're going to click on the calibrate button. Well, once you have all your expressions recorded. But you're going to click on the calibrate button. And as you can see, the facial detection shall start working. Now, as I said before, it might not be accurate because I've only recorded very little. I recommend maybe record more data. You can always click it again, record it again. If something truly messed up, you can always click on the clear button at the bottom and click on yes, if you like. But pretty much that's literally how the expression detection works in a nutshell. But for more details, check out Emiliana's tutorial, and she shows you how the face should look like if you want the best results. So let's move on to the general settings. Alright, let's scroll up. So let's move on to the little sliders here, which is the best part of all of the movement. So focal length is just adjusting your camera from orthographic to kind of a perspective looking type of look. It really depends on what you're looking for. Blink sensitivity kind of messes with how sensitive your eyes are when moving, which can actually help with giving like a mid blink. So if you look right here with the green little face, you can see my eyes are slightly closed. You can kind of reduce it to kind of give like that half eye look, which is really awesome. But that's why, if you want that, go ahead. If you want to put it all the way up so it's harder to mess with the blink, go ahead. Blink smoothness, adjust the smoothness of the blink, depends on what you like on that. Look down threshold, if you are an artist that would use a drawing tablet on your art streams and you're looking down a lot, this is very useful for you guys because you can set the while looking down option to auto blink, and you can set the threshold just a little bit high so that way when you're looking down it enables the auto blink or the less sensitive blink, which is really useful if you're looking down a lot and you need correct eye blinking movements. So gaze strength, that is where your eye tracking will happen. I would set to the max so that way if I look left and right, it'll do the trick, and that's really awesome. For Roy models, it'll probably move a lot more, but for my case, because I have eyeballs, it's not going to work the best. But you can put the gaze sensitivity all the way up, which can actually help with my eyes, but really not too big of a deal. For Roy models, I would probably put it lower, because usually they have a different eye type. They would not use eyeballs, they would have a different eye structure. So if you want to put it low, go ahead. Now, if by any chance your eyes are positioned in a weird way, You can always set the offset to up or down if you want to fix the eye positioning, or left and right. It really depends on what you want. It depends on if your eyes are in the correct position. For my case, my eyes are perfectly fine. Eyebrow strength is to enable the eyebrow tracking. If for eyebrow sensitivity, it can create more movement with the eyebrows. But if you want less movement, you can always decrease it. Which is if you want less eyebrow movement, or if you want very little or a lot. It really depends on you. Eyebrow offset, if your eyebrows are clipping, you can always position them in a certain place so that way you don't have to deal with weird clipping issues. Lip sync smoothing, if you put it to the max, your mouth will stop moving. But if you put it all the way down, you start getting this weird fast talking right here, which can actually give some sort of 2D effect, which is really awesome. But, you know, it depends on what you're looking for in the style. You know, all that cool stuff. Lip sync audio overdrive gain. That is usually used on quiet microphones. For my case, I don't really need it because my microphone is pretty loud. But if you have a very quiet microphone, you might want to increase this a little higher. For my case, it's really no difference. It's to help out with the microphone. But let's skip that. Let's move on. Mouse sensitivity pretty much helps with mainly like the facial tracking part, where if I were to open my mouth slightly, it actually moves it a little bit more. So very slight mouth movements. This will really help. So watch this. And as you can see with the green face right here, you can see a little movement with the mouth, and that's really useful. But if you don't want that, you can always decrease it to have less of a mouth movement. Mouth smoothness, if you want more smoothness in the mouth, go ahead. You can add more smoothness, or if you want to decrease it, go ahead. That's literally your choice in the mouth movement. Now, if by any chance you're experiencing any clipping with your mouth, like your teeth are popping out of your chin and all that, and some weird stuff, you might want to reduce the slider right here, the mouth size reduction. I usually put mine a little bit high, somewhere around that. I do have chin movement, but because they're not really a big amount of movement, I would definitely need the setting. For the arm angle, this is something really fun that some VTubers like. You know, kind of like to have like a little flapping arm thing, but really it's kind of like to have a nice arm position when you're, you know, tracking or streaming and all that. So it's really useful. This is not an alternative to the leap motion. Be aware of that. Not an alternative at all. So yeah. Shoulder stiffness relates to the leap motion and the shoulder movement. Usually you can leave it too low, but if you want some stiffness on your shoulders, you can always max it out or put it higher, but I would leave that alone. Body stiffness, if you take a look at my movement, so let me put the arms down a little more. If you notice that my body, the way it's moving, it moves pretty naturally. But if you want your body to stay in one place, you can always increase the stiffness, and it can stay in one place. But if you put it all the way down, it will follow your head movements if that's what you want. For neck stiffness, you basically, if you increase it, it's going to literally have your body and neck be attached basically, where it's basically kind of like all in one, kind of like less head movement, at least angle wise, you know, from side to side, but really you still have that head movement. But if you put the neck stiffness all the way down, you kind of have more kind of like head movement, more, it's mainly neck movement in your model, which can give if you want more head movements and all that, much more dynamic movement, you can always enable that or put all the way down, but it's all up to you on what you want. Expression stabilizer, it's basically, I just call this a facial delay slider. That's literally it. The more you increase it when it comes to facial detection, so if I smile, it has a little bit of a delay, as you can see with this green face right here. See? So that's pretty much what it does. I usually leave this at the bottom because I want fast response expressions, but if you want to have that, in case you want to make sure your expressions are actually a little bit more accurate, you might want to have the expression stabilizer there. So that pretty much covers the sliders. In order to have the mouse lip sync based on audio, you click on the button that says load and play audio, and you load an audio file, and it should be able to play the sound and have your mouse, well, it kind of guesses the syllables or the words based on the audio, and it'll try to make lip sync out of it. Now, I would recommend having it a cappella, since it gives more of an accurate mouse movement, especially since it's just voice only and you don't want to include the instrumental in there. It's really up to you what you want. Go have fun with it. So if you want to get rid of this green face right here, you can always hide tracking points. And if you want, if there's any big issue with VSeeFace where you need to reset the program, you can always click on factory reset. And if you want your settings, so if you forgot to back up your settings, no worries, because you can always click on the show login settings folder, and it should show you your backup, which will be under a factory reset file, which you can literally rename to the settings.ini or the avatar list.ini, which is, I literally call it ini, but you know, it's whatever. But you can find it there, rename it, and you can have all your settings saved and ready to go. So that's pretty much it. And also, if you ever want to report any bugs at all to Emiliana, there is a player log and your error log there as well. If she ever asks for the player log or error log at any time, if you're asking about a certain bug or you're reporting a bug, that's where you're going to have a copy of those files, and you are going to send it through her via Discord or whichever social media she told you to submit it at. So that's pretty much it for that. If you want to move your shadows on your model right here, you can always hold the control button and drag with your left mouse button, and you can adjust your shadows. Which is very nice if you want certain shadow casting. If you want to save the light position, go to settings, light settings, and click on save position, so that way every time you open up VSeeFace, your light settings will always be saved for you. Now, if you want to add some shadows, you can always click on the shadows button right here, which can add a little bit more shadows, I guess accurate shadows. But in certain cases it might not look good, so I usually keep it disabled on certain cases, but it's all up to you on what you like. So there you go. And remember, everything's all autosave, so all of your sliders, depending on where you move them, they're all automatically saved, so do not worry. If you want to take a screenshot, you can always press the S button. And if you want to know where the screenshots are, they're under the documents folder, under the VSeeFace folder, and there you can have a picture of your avatar with a transparent background, which you can actually use during collab streams if your friend wants to use just a picture of you. So yeah. Now, also be aware, there's this little blue bar here, which a lot of people talk about or ask about. What is this blue bar? This blue bar basically is letting you know that your face is about to be off the webcam frame. And this is real life, not avatar, real life. So if by any chance you experience the blue bar quite a lot, you might want to adjust your camera. Or, if you like, if by any chance your camera is, perfectly well placed, you might want to move yourself instead, which is why I'm keeping myself, aligned with my camera. That way I don't really see the blue bars as much. But even then, I'm pretty much good. But you cannot remove them at all. There's no remove button. They're very useful to have, and they will never show up in your recording because they are alpha materials and they will never ever show up. So don't worry. Now you might notice these little letters right here. This shows your little status, which is your FPS on VSeeFace, your tracking rate, which is your webcam's actual tracking FPS, and your resolution of your webcam, or whichever you choose. And also be aware that before you exit VSeeFace, you have to save your calibration, which is right here. You can click on Save Calibration As and type in what your calibration name is, and VSeeFace will automatically load that file every time you open up. If by any chance you don't like the calibration, you want to start all over, you can always click on the Clear Calibration. If you ever want to load any calibration at all, which is this is only regarding the facial detection, not the settings for general, nothing else, it's only the expressions right here. You can load someone else's calibration, although I would not recommend that because it might not work properly for you since it's based on their face really. But you know, you can go ahead and try that out if you want to, you know, take a risk or something, but really you don't need to do that. And if you do ever want to share settings with other people, you can share the settings.ini file or ini file, but at the same time, be careful when sharing it because it does show your computer path, which can reveal your real name. So please be very careful when sharing your settings. Same with avatar lists as well, which I don't think anyone's going to share their avatar list, but just in case, they will also show your computer paths. So be aware about that, and please remove those paths if you ever plan on sharing any settings at all. But yeah, any other settings I may have missed will always be in the help section. Like resetting the camera is the C button, and the reset light direction will be your D button. And there's so many other explanations here, which is very useful. So I do recommend take a read at it, since it literally has pretty much almost everything else you need to know about VSeeFace, as well as the hints, since you know it gives you all that information, the extra information, all that. But let's get on to the last parts. So if you want to change your avatar, there are two ways to do that. If by any chance you are streaming and you want to swap your avatar midstream, you can always use the L button, select your model, and there you go. I have a hat now. So pretty much, you can use the L button, but if you don't want to, you can always use the avatar selection button all the way up here, where you can be able to load the avatars that you have put in VSeeFace, or at least, you know, had detectable with VSeeFace. But pretty much that's all you have to know about VSeeFace, and the last part would be just your little button right here. Click on the button right here, which looks very fancy. And you got transparency mode all around you. They're gonna look like little checker boxes, but once you put them to OBS Studio, you will not expect a thing. It will just be like nothing happened. You can use your game capture to set up your, you know, your games and all that, and you're ready to start VTubing and all that. So, and if you want to hide the button, spacebar, and you're good to go. If you do have to swap at any time at all, you can always use the spacebar and get the button, click the button, and you can be back to the UI. If by any chance you are streaming and you don't want the UI to show up, you can always use the virtual cam instead to hide your UI and use that and put that into OBS Studio. Note that it will use more CPU, but if you really want to, you can always use virtual cam to hide your UI during your streams. But yeah, that's pretty much it for the VSeeFace tutorial. I hope that you enjoy it. Hopefully this helps you. Report any bugs or any issues to Emiliana on Deat's Discord server. And you can always leave any questions about VSeeFace in the comments. I'll try my best to answer as many questions as possible, along with Emiliana. She'll pop up and let you know, you can try this and all that stuff, because she's very helpful and she loves to help people when it comes to using VSeeFace. So yeah, that's pretty much it. I hope you enjoy everything. Let me know if I screwed up anything and all that, but with that being said, I am Cadet Second Lieutenant Del Valle, signing off.